Okay, once again, yeah, I want to maybe talk a little bit something about the memory minus de facto as compared to litigation minus de facto, and something about corporate terminology and legal terminology and corporate levels. Yeah, uh, maybe not so much like right now about the litigation and corporate level of law, but anyway, yeah. So there's like something about the I had something about the coupon LASIK laser corrective eye surgery. It seemed to be like almost a not necessarily a freeze frame. The thing with this is that my thought of Jay Giles as compared to a very short segment during the Austin Powers movie of a wheelbarrow seemed to be ultimately something in my mind of like Asteroid and the Barrel of Fun. And yeah, what I'm actually seeing of, my thought of, the tribe of Judah in a way, like the tribe of musicians in a way. That, according to some of the information based upon networking, seems to be really the deal of whether or not the classified ads equate to what only opportunity is, or classified in a way. But all that hypothetical metaphor stuff isn't really my idea of, you know, just indiscretion, like a irrational like behavior or thought pattern in that way. But anyway, yeah. So in any case, yeah. So I was like thinking about some of the stuff in the '80s based just upon African American linguistics and analytical in the way of like practical application of principle and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah. So the '80s being automatically like answers in that way has ultimately got to some thoughts about the perception, even the beams, the light beams. What kind of light beams? I'm not real sure if they're actually lasers or the spotlights. Um, about the two at the World Trade Center, and some of the thoughts about even like Highway 288, yeah, here on the south side of Houston, yeah. So anyway, yeah, something about that, and the wall seems to be like the Bay Area Boulevard, Nessa Road 1 thing about FM 528, or what that is to the Whoopa as compared to the Whopper. It seems to be like the deal of like the African Americans of 128 and the FM 528 and Nostradamus in a way of his predictions being accurate in a way of like Nostradamus, according to the narration of Orson Welles, okay? And it seems to be the big deal about Orson Welles, or I'll have to think about it after I say it, but I think it's like an automatic 152, an international thing of the telepathic card. And I have to actually like think about it because very rarely do I think of Orson Welles alphanumerically, but I think it is 152 and like international and telepathic card. But anyway, yeah. So like ultimately the deal about FM 528 seems to be the deal about the Nostradamus predictions into beyond the new millennium, which would be the year 2000. And the new millennium being 1,000, and what the 1,000 years of peace of Zion would represent as compared to maybe like today and this year of September 2023, has ultimately got to like something of the blue and purple bird, the bird of like Israel, of the Israeli flag and the code blue thing about it. And something about Orson Welles in a way. I mean, the inaugural ball thing, and the well of awesome thing about Shampoo being 87 and 12, Alvin Miracle of 87, and like a miracle God and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, FM 528 is like Nessa Road 1, okay. And like Austin Powers is like I-35, like the capital of Texas, okay. Likewise, Austin being 84 and embassy and all that stuff. Anyway, like something about Nostradamus and Orson Welles. I've watched it, and that was like back in the 80s, and I remember quite a bit about it. Ultimately get into a code blue and like the Persian Gulf and the way of the blue turbans, or like the jet blue deal, and what turbans of nationality as compared to according to the narration of Orson Welles and Nostradamus. In any case, it's my thought of the African Americans ultimately leading to Nostradamus' predictions being of the accuracy of 400 years into the new millennium being 1,000 years. It's automatically like a separation of church and state thing to me, and the equator, what the operator and Zion and ACTP :// is to even like a 1980s band, right? Of like a round and round, and certain factors of alignment, and likewise is a place of like architecture in a way, not limited to it, but also computer programming, but architecture in a way of like blueprints, and very much involving isometrics of practical application that way of like methods of banking and what it is beyond business and corporate law of like volume, a pi r squared that way of like being above it and like alive, not necessarily a question whether or not if a grade's been made beyond like a local area network of internet protocol. Yeah, so it seemed to be like quite a bit about what I've been thinking about really for a long time and years. But in any case, yeah. So there seemed to be something about in the '80s in a song that's had Sam Kinison in it, and the thing about it is like um, his phrase. It seems to be like now the thing about it. What was her name? And it's kind of like it seems to be like the deal about the white eyes when you see the whites of their eyes, and something about the um, that as well as the thing about what. It's like a combination like what, yeah, and the eyes thing, the whites of the eyes and the what. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So like I've been saying that and noticing something about that. Yeah, but yeah. Actually, the alphabet's of 52. What, and then the pronunciation like what being the what 2041, 20, 40, 41, and the 64 thing of what and HTTP, and you know what that is to the colon and like American, and Israel and or the Paso, which seems to be a big deal of like very much of the history of the television screen and very much about it. But yeah, in any case, yeah. So I mean, Paso being like 73 and Israeli and Harris, like in the Houston, Texas area, and pastel seemingly to be the thing about the not only architecture but likewise the memory of memory minus de facto. In a way of like when litigation, even knowing when litigation starts. I mean, might be maybe possibly not knowing what a television is. The accusation of like instead of only what's available as like being presented and made as not even identified as an opportunity or a degree level of a distribution, or what a point of distribution as compared to what an equator is to opportunity of degree as compared to degree non-degree or non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization seems to be the deal about the commercial paper identified like in real estate as non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization. And normally it's, according to only information availability that I've seen and really even noticed or cared to notice, is seemingly to be involving development. There, communities that are being built as compared to real estate of terminology of non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization. And sometimes people do not realize something about it, and really it seems to be more and more significant that not acknowledging or going beyond that might not even be a normal perception of what even real estate is to a neighborhood or a residential or the neighborhood being a yay or nay thing, that dates back all the way through the judicial system, or voting in a way like even representatives in a way, or what a rep is to white ERP or a rep or ERP or Pentagon forward, reverse, drummer, and all the 92 stuff about it, ultimately getting to calculus likewise. The yays and nays, it seemed to be the deal about that going beyond really the calculus and getting into the quantum and get the alphanumerics of 107 military and other stuff about alphanumerics of like 107. And it seemed to be, really something about the thing of Sam Kinison seemed to be, kind of like an experience of mine, like automatically years later, it's kind of like it seemed to be like when you see the whites of their eyes, and they're somewhere in history, and I'll think about it before I even mention it or say it right now, but something about the whites of the eyes, and based upon the experience, it's kind of like the what, yeah, and the white eye thing. Well, anyway, yeah. So anyway, there was something like this, and I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. But this let me get the gloss of it. It seemed to be like the LASIK, laser corrective eye surgery, and similarity of that the whites of the eye thing. But anyway, yeah. So that is something that I thought I'd go ahead and include because it seemed to be something beyond the current resident of like the coupon thing, and something about in my mind Nostradamus in a way. How true it is, I'm not sure, but anyway, it's kind of like the thing about the Nostradamus, his prediction of accuracy, according to Orson Welles' narration, the accuracy of 400 years yet of the new millennium, which is the 1000, being the year 2000 now, and a combination of that being 2400, and what that is two-dimensional clause or access, as compared to like the Christian religion being a dimensional clause, or Washington D.C. What television or electronic God is to Washington and the D.C. of direct circuit and dimensional clause, okay, and what that is to practical application of access easement, or what it is to decreed, non-decreed, or opportunity of non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization, normally of neighborhoods, and what yays and nays is. It seems to be like really of the cabinet, as well as the congressional act of House Mercy 151. Yeah, amazingly true. Yeah, what's this? Secret Service and Holy Spirit issue? The yays and nays thing. Is it really? Is it? Is it really? I mean, is it governmental in the way of like what the House of Representatives, the Senate, is or is not of redundant frequency, huh? Or is it the neighborhood, the yays and nays, huh? Or the ye shall know them by their fruits, or is it the fruits? Is it the detour? Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So like, anyways, it seemed to be like something about Nostradamus and accuracy. Ultimately, get into an SAT thing of, in my mind, VSAT, and what SAT is to the Six Flags thing of seemingly to be of the general 5 stars on each side, and what that is to a Big Ten winner. And the thing of it is that I was thinking about something about the FM 528 being Nassau Road 1. What was in Clear Lake, and it still is based upon just knowing. Or even it's almost kind of like the spirit of adoption, like a symbolic representation of Brazoria country, and all that stuff about country and county and the R deal involved with it. But anyway, FM 528, okay, is something of, in my mind, Nostradamus' predictions and accuracies of 400, and FM 528 and NASA being like human capital, or something beyond business and corporate law in the way of circuit, or what the television is as a stationary engineering thing of like even teleprompting in a way of sometimes maybe what maybe it really might not be limited to the thought of what homeowners association, or even what now seems to be the difference between the ERISA statute and the IRA, with the remainder of like SE and pronunciation and language to being the yes thing, and at the same time vision. And the thing about what I'm looking at and have been for years, really, it seemed to be like I don't know how on time, it's just something I noticed really, and I'm really not sure, about when it's like 15. I think it was like somewhere around like 1979, maybe even 19, and maybe 1980 as well. That thing about calendar year and fiscal annual and actual placement and time and date of like birth, kind of like business and corporate law. I mean, more so business, just according, maybe so including corporate law. In any case, yeah, like a calendar year as compared to like a point of origin, like even a business or even birth in that way. Well, anyway, so how true it is about 1979 and 80, I'll have to actually think about. But anyway, it seemed to be the deal of FM 528 and the predictions of Nostradamus of Orson Welles, and actually of Nostradamus' predictions of 400 years, seemed to be the deal of like memory minus de facto, equating to like 35 in Austin, and Austin Powers, my thought of a movie, and the coupon what you just seen there. But it seemed to ultimately getting to like the barrel of fun at Astroworld. And most of the information that I have been only really aware of, it seemed to be like a networking thing right now of information. But anyway, it seemed to be like the thing of Nostradamus being 400, and like a remainder of 128, with Nostradamus' predictions of narration of Orson Welles, with a remainder of like 128, and the blue and purple bird of Israel is the Whoopa, as compared to the oldest governmental computer mainframe of the high-O silver and the stainless steel toilet, as compared to what a domiciled head of household might only mean to the tidy bow man, or some haloed venue. Really a pronunciation, I mean, for real. And what that is, some thought of even a haloed venue of like even an angel, just some meaning beyond the computer literacy of isometrics. I mean, it's automatic. Two-dimensional of practical application of isometrics of three-dimensional, and even really the square and perforated paper of toilet paper, yeah, and computer literacy comparable to scientific notation, yeah, for real. But anyway, yeah, so it seemed to be like the deal about the Nostradamus and Orson Welles. Orson Welles, I'm gonna have to think about it, but I'm gonna say now, but I just very rarely do I refer to Orson Welles. But I think it's the Alphamerics 152 and International. Yeah, and a telepathic heart that way, or it seemed to be like something about history, and how true it is about when you see the whites of their eyes, okay, And in my experience, it's kind of like, the whites of my eyes, going, and what? yeah, yeah, that thing about it, yeah. So, and something in my mind seemed to be like almost like a music video of like when Sam Kinison was in it with like a 1980s rock band, and the thing, what was her name? And something about that in Infinity, is she born with it? Well, in any case, it seemed to be, in my mind of something of nativity point of origin and Native American Indian, the way of a telepathic being 99, or what would be maybe based upon a syllable that would give the impression sometimes of initials or, abbreviation. In any case, like the telepathic TP, deal about the TP and telepathic that way. But anyway, ultimately it seems to be getting to the deal of telekinetics, and I'll get into it a little bit, but it seems to be like the Orson Welles narration that, and the accuracy of Nostradamus, 400 years combined with the prediction of the new millennium, and narrated by Orson Welles, being, beyond the year 2000, being of the year 2012. This being the year 2023, has ultimately gotten to something in my mind of a practical application of Western auto, and what the American Idol is to, like, even pagan idolatry, or the Deep Star 6, the 6-point star, and the code blue is, also, above the, what would be, above or below sea level issue. And that was like the phrase, and now it seems to be like the Apple iPhone SE, a pronunciation of C, and that being like the yes and the 49 thing of a pro, or the Lord, okay? And what the difference is between, Jesus Christ and the Lord Jesus Christ, or the pro. I mean, if it's really the only difference between what only opportunity of international law of having fair use of access easement in the form of like proper English grammatical composition or third person, sometimes referred to as party. Normally, in political science, the word party normally doesn't identify non-degreed or non-transferable, non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization. But it seemed to be almost like a practical requirement that would be, of a non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization that way. It seemed to be the thing of the ERISA. I've heard it and seen it both ways, including some reference in Ed McMahon's, the Internal, and possibly be, a Big Ten winner, the American Family Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes, or, by entering now, and all that stuff about, you could win an extra $1 million, or a grand total of $11 million. Well, anyway, it seemed to be like the only deal about it seemed to be of the absolute values, like going through like algebra and certain factors of even tech math. And through, calculus on into quantum, and what the algorithm is or is not, or the question, is she born with it? Is the algorithm the question of infinity? Ultimately, in my mind, it seems to be, the thing about the 90-degree right angle and the symmetrical, asymmetrical issue of even the formula, the computation of the formula pi r squared, the symbolic representation of the pi being 3.1416, and times, sometimes represented by an X, but not really. In algebra, it's represented with like a dot, kind of like in the center between the lines, and what the dot is, and meaning, and where the dot is multiplication as compared to the X, and what type of identifying, a category of mathematics, or, algebra, or simple arithmetic, or what arithmetic is to the heartbeat of America, or even arrhythmia, yeah. And I'd mentioned something about that, because, but I'm not going to talk about it right now, about AFib and arrhythmia, as compared to like certain procedures, real quick about it, about the ultimately getting to a pericardium, and what congestion and similarities of congestive is to like even mesothelioma, or the bronchial tubes that way, which seem to be the same issue of like even amyloidosis, which is inside the blood vessel, causing a restriction, which doesn't allow proper transfer of oxygen through the lungs anyway. The same as mesothelioma, of congested between, the tissues of the inner bronchial tube as compared to the outer bronchial tube, and fluid trapped between the layers of the bronchial tube itself, preventing normal transfer of oxygen, or even dissipation of providing, like nutrients and when eating to transfer, and feed the body what it needs, and the similarities of like mesothelioma as compared to like actual, normally a cardiologist would recommend something, according to my experience, it had been a 16-month period, and only the 15-month was a 1 month of a 16-month period that I did not even have to call 911, but it's really kind of frustrating. Although, after like the third or fourth month, it seemed to be like, the degree thing about it, but yeah. So anyway, in any case, yeah, so I wouldn't really agree with quite a bit about the admitting diagnosis. But anyway, it seemed to be the similarities, seemed to be the big deal of just knowing, of ultimately getting to a pericardium as compared to what the procedure would be. Sometimes the congestive side and what the nerve is as compared to a condition that might be of like congestive as compared to maybe a neurosensory. Sometimes they refer to it as a shock treatment, but a procedure of similarity when talking about cutting the tissue. And according to the information that was being involved, okay, it seemed to be a procedure of a pericardium, a bag around the heart. But a pi r squared, I mean, ultimately getting to the lungs. The 3 layers, I mean, it's identified as 3 layers around the heart, but really only 2 layers of tissues really only needed to create a bag. I mean, for real. Yet the tissue, the way it's given as information, like on my mobile phone, the networking, obviously, thing about, what is being provided of like whether if it's only opportunity or, a networking issue presenting, the information in a way that's normally not really thought of as, really not funny about it. But anyway, it seemed to be like all that information is there. And through the arrhythmia and AFib, fibrillation, the procedures identifying tissue based upon a causation as compared to not really the cause and effect, but it's a symptom, yeah. Okay, the difference between a cause of and the cause actually, having a, I don't want to say chain reaction, but an effect, and whether I don't know if I'd call it chronological. In any case, in anatomy, sometimes a cause will cause a symptom, and sometimes even the symptom will actually be a result of a cause, and that symptom actually causing another symptom. Yeah, so that seemed to be like the real deal of something I experienced here. Not very, like maybe 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, and like a 16-month period, which ultimately really is probably around, close to 2 years now, give or take, but I'm not really counting. But anyway, the thing with it is that all that combined with what was in my mind automatically congestive. It had ultimately, both my parents passed away with cancer, okay? So like I was like with my mother, I mean like every possible chance. And when my mother passed away, it was, I want to make this clear, I had mentioned maybe a 5-year period. It was really a total of 5 years, like the first 2 years of my mother having chemotherapy and sometimes having a need for like a blood transfusion as compared to the infusion of chemotherapy and other forms of like treatment and involving, MRIs and magnetic resonance and the contrast and the isotope issue and, a lot of deals, even, whether, if being in light sometimes would give an effect. This normally, normally brought back over I think, I'm not sure if it's the light, if it actually, what the deal is about the light and treatment as compared to, would be sometimes identified as saline. Normally it's like a common word in vision and contacts as saline. Yet it's actually something involving, even an infusion of therapy that's normally like in a separate bag. But I'm actually trying to place it if my memory is, or even if I should even mention. But the isotope seemed to be like really the deal. And I'm trying to actually place it if it's really an isotope in the saline or the chemotherapy itself. So I want to make that much clear about it. But there's like a brown bag over it, okay? And it prevents light, whatever effect it is. I'm not going to act like I can't find out or no. But the thing with this is that like it's a brown bag. Anyway, ultimately, the difference between a blood transfusion as compared to infusion, and what the isotope is to saline and vision. Okay, it seems to be like something of like all this seems to be like, something of circuit and electronic power, and I don't really want to refer to it that way, really at all, or the acronym EPA of Electronic Power of America or the Environmental Protection Agency. I don't really, I'm not supposed to have an issue with that, and really I don't want to, but it seems to be like, that's why I'm actually mentioning it. I don't have that issue, okay? or what atmospheric condition is to like weather conditions as compared to like being inside. Okay. In any case, yeah. In any case, yeah. So anyway, like I'm gonna get back to it real quick, but it seemed like a combination of procedures that had been in many diagnoses of like congestive heart failure was in my mind. I automatically was with the impression I had a restriction in blood flow. I mean, it just seemed to be automatic what it was. Just based upon like I'm like God, I'm what I'll actually have to think about it. Yeah, I think I'm like 65. No, actually, I don't know how old I am. I'm what 58. Oh, it's 59. Of course, yes. This is like Highway 59 is the alphanumerics, the word itself, and attenuation. Yeah, which is like electronic power and signal processing and processing speed and all that of like signal processors and processing speed, right? Between more so of like the digital thing about them. The conversion from like analog to digital. Well, anyway, so like real quick about it. But it seemed like a combination of all three of those procedures seemed to be almost like a heart transplant. And something about telekinetic, and like Papermate had been using pens with like two hearts, a vertical, what represents vertical, one on top of each other between like paper and made. And so much that it seemed to be, a lot about 56 is 10 being 94. And really not that at all. It seemed to be the deal of like maybe academics of the telekinetic role and what the telekinetic role might be academic of like alphanumerics. Maybe the perception of maybe academic that way, but not linguistics or the study of language. Many people might think going to English class might be the thought of, hey, the studied the English language. Well, when in fact linguistics is like far beyond, just going to English class. I mean, all the way even up to a major university. English itself or language itself without like linguistics. I mean, it's a whole different perception. I've spent like many years, more so than probably 15 to 20 years on linguistics and alphanumerics, but like really for like about close to 6-7 years. It was 5, 6, maybe 7 years. I mean, virtually nonstop at every possible opportunity and time would be, a 5 to 6 year, not automatic, maybe somewhere close to 7. I was like alphanumerics just alone, okay, but when I got to it and I known it and I kind of waited on it, and when I really realized something about linguistics, of study of language, and the two, like the M is in, the two letters in the middle of the alphabet, or what a pivot point might mean to, Pentagon, reserve, reverse, and a drummer, and the alphanumerics, and even calculus that way of like what going beyond my thought of business corporate law, of calculus and getting into the quantum, would be, more so of an executive in my mind, even maybe with what the thought might be of legislation as compared to executive and presidential, or a corporate level that might, represent the acronym, maybe so in a whole different perception of, what description is. But anyway, yeah, so in any case, so like I was thinking about all that, and in any case, yeah, so, Papermate being 56 and 39, ultimately being, like an angel or herb, or even the number 10, the 56 10 is like a paper mate being 39, okay, and like the numeric value of the word 10, and actually the numerical value of 10 itself, so it's like a 56 is 10 is ultimately getting to like annotated and abortion and adoption. It seemed to be like the Roe v. Wade thing. My name is Wade, okay, and let me make that clear real good. And alphanumerics are 213, and my first middle and last name, Wade Sterling Priddy, Priddy. Well, anyway, through years of it, and it seemed to be like the deal about the memorial issue, representative of surface, or what, going beyond a method of banking, or a local internet protocol of a local area network seemed to be like, whether or not, if anyone really knows the difference that's not involved with like networking between like LAN, local area networks, or wide area networks, or, World Wide Web. Some people that are really not involved or maybe experienced it enough to like, hey, what's going on, kind of like, and notice the difference, The thing with this is that it seems to be the surface of a memorial, or even what the San Jacinto Monument is to being airborne, beyond the thought of even making it great beyond a local area network, the surface issue or what might be considered maritime law, or even the thought of the ocean, or what that is to the delta and the big mouth of the river and the triangle of schematics, and the 3 points of a triangle as compared to the pi square factor, practical application of principle, and all that stuff, and being a 6-point star of like Deep Star 6, which is ultimately getting to like a night vision, an Abraham Lincoln deal, or maybe even the thought of American Idol issue, or pagan idolatry that might totally go beyond what a 1-800 number might only mean, to like 800 RPM being a standard of every form of transportation, being alphanumeric 200 and a plenipotentiary, or a bicentennial drummer, or the thing about that. A quarter in the way, a telepathic quarter, Lord Jesus Christ, a plenipotentiary, or pro Jesus Christ, all that stuff, or a pro Holy Spirit, or and it seemed to be something maybe at the time that I may have not had the connectivity about pro life, and maybe been naive about maybe what a memorial might mean to the Lord, or a local area network, making a grade beyond into the wide. And it seemed to be the deal about the Sam Kinison deal. Ultimately, it seemed to be like the Lincoln and the pronunciation using the same letters, and getting the pronunciation, not that every letter is like the thing about it, but it is still the same pronunciation of Lincoln and Kennel. And the thing about studying it quite a bit between county and country is like the R deal and the principle of the P. When you see it, sometimes it's not pronounced, and when you do see it, it is pronounced. And it seems to be the PS and the SP thing about it, using that as really what that is, and something about the Sahara and Sarah, and what the most beautiful woman in the entire King James Version Bible represents, as compared to like the Book of Mormon, okay, Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, or Seventh Day Adventist thing about Saturday being the SAT, and the alphanumerics of English predominantly in VSAT, or what SAT is to like the entrance exam of the highest possible score of 2400, and the connectivity in my mind of like NASA and FM 528 and the WUPA, as compared to the high silver deal of the stainless steel toilet of one. I'm not sure if I should call it venue, or structure, or government, or what the oldest location of the high silver thing about the thing about the oldest governmental computer mainframe called the Whopper, as compared to the Israeli bird Whoopa. It's the R factor of pronunciation, not necessarily the spelling, but yes, the pronunciation of the Whoopa. It's the blue and purple bird. The alphanumerics 128, and the accuracy of like of Nostradamus' predictions of 400 years based upon the Orson Welles narration, and Orson Welles being 152. And I'm going to have to think about it real quick. Maybe later I might do it, but I'll probably do it later. But Orson Welles, almost for certain, it's like 152, a telepathic card, and international, all the connectivity, and something about LASIK, and the pronunciation of LASIK, laser corrective eye surgery, and something in the immediate area in the west side of Houston, seemingly ultimately getting to something in my mind really about data foundry, like the Marathon Oral building right there at the Yorktown and like San Felipe, and LASIK, laser corrective eye surgery in that area, close to not far from the Art Institute, which is like right next door where I went for like television production, and audio production, and music video business, and for a short time, yeah. After like going to studying to be a paralegal, I like completed 9 courses, going on my 10th course, and I decided to go to the Art Institute for like a music video and television audio production. But yeah, so like I'm really just now really kind of like really thinking about it in a whole different perspective. And anyway, yeah, so like anyway, like the LASIK, laser corrective eye surgery, and the coupon seem to be the deal of like a prepaid postage in a way of what a current resident is. And sometimes like a current resident in my mind is automatically like a deal of banking and circuit and currency, or even controlling what in my mind would be a regulating factor of like international banking systems having circuit and currency over the categorization of money, and what local area network is to like a memorial, or not being degreed in a way of being above an equator based upon an academic and actually participating and earn experience, in my mind, experiencing a circuit and going through something like really, it's like a watt. When you see the whites of their eyes, yeah, it's the watt. You have to have the watt 52 thing about it, right? Yeah. So anyway, like the thing about the picture, yeah. So anyway, it's like something in my mind that seemed to be like ultimate. Now I'm really trying to think about if the commercial Infinity seemed to be the automatic word copacetic in Twin Peaks, and the actress she's doing the commercial, and I don't think she's. Yeah, I like to really think about the duration of like when she's like the star of like the V series on television as well as the Alaskan thing about the Twin Peaks, and it seemed to be like the deal about what would be normally associated with like universities, um, and just terminology of like academics. The thing about linguistics, obviously, the word copacetic, yeah, seemed to be like the thing about an academic level of being on campus, or as compared to the Camp David, and the Campbell's alphabet soup, the super star, the Campbells beyond Camp David, the Campbells. Yeah, and what the Israeli flag is to Camp David in the Oval Office that way of like even Mount Olives, what the plateau is to even the Purple Mountains of Majesty, um, above the fruited plains, and what Mount Olives is in Book of Thessalonians ultimately ascending in sky and the transfiguration of Christianity in the Book of Thessalonians is the thing in my mind of Purple Mountains of Majesty above the fruited plains, America deal about what that is to the plateau of like the Book of Thessalonians and Mount Olives that way. A little humor of forbearance and academics that way of a practical application of principle. Beyond like forbearance of like a learn as you go thing, of grants of presenting practical application of even annuity that way, or what that is to television, electronic God, or a lot of academics of Washington and what the area code 202 of Eternal Treasury to Washington D.C. and what the front and back side of the U.S. $1 bill is to quite a bit. But anyway, like the Wolf Bird is like the alphanumeric 128. Okay, and my thing about the Orson Welles Nostradamus is the accuracy of the 400-year prediction, and all the connectivity between the birds seem to be like the Deep Star Six, being academic of like even a pagan idolatry of like the movie Ten Commandments with like Charlton Heston and like Yul Brynner, or what UL listed means to Egypt and Harris or the Houston area in the US $1 of the pyramid or the triangle and the delta force that way, or what pi r squared practical application as compared to exponential quotient, and the triangle schematic applied to itself looking like a 6-point star of electronic power being alphanumeric 181 Houston, Texas, and we international. What entertainment really seems to be law of expenditures as compared to something of going through the circuit that might only be the thought of like going beyond and experience something of circuit, and the what when you see the white, you're like what? Yeah. Well, anyway, so like I was looking at that the picture on Lexus laser corrective eye surgery. With the white hair and blue eyes, and very much something in my mind of the figure 8. And why I'm mentioning it is simply because of the Whoopa bird, and the Whopper, the oldest governmental computer mainframe, called the Whopper, as compared to the Israeli bird, the Israeli thing being about the alphanumeric 73 in Harris and Union or Egypt and the US $1. And all the connectivity seemed to be the ultimately between NASA being 35 and Austin Powers or what human capital is to human civil rights in Geneva, Switzerland. It's been quite a bit. Anyway, this picture really I've been in my mailbox of LASIK's laser corrective eye surgery. Okay, and my thought, really, ultimately, it's gotten to even before a guy told me, hey man, you already know, and it's kind of like all the information's there, but the connectivity, and here recently, it's kind of like I was thinking about that because of the what and the whites of the eyes thing, and when and where, and something about the Barbara Walters, The View, ultimately getting to even the thing about oil, or the pronunciation, what Howard Hughes is to oil, as compared to what that is to night vision, or the thought of even a drummer like of a rudiment as compared to like crude oil as compared to what a rudiment might only suggest as need of refining or perfecting, or processing speed, what would be normally determined as to be the ultimate requirement of processing. In any case, yeah. So like I was thinking about that because Sam Kinison is ultimately something in my mind associated with the music video in the 80s, predominantly 80 being an answer seemed to be the big deal. Even the protractors in the rainbow, or Robert Half, or spherical quadrants being like a global perception of spherical quadrants of like the entire like planet Earth, um, in spherical quadrants, and what a perpendicular spiral is to a parameter or going beyond the parameter. And I'll just leave it at that right now, and what it means of sound. Yeah, so anyway, as compared to attenuation and digital signal processing of like audio production or practical application of the different by design E of structure, in my mind automatically a Japanese symbolic representation of the what is given is how true it is. Okay, I'm not going to act like I know everything, but how true it is even in Japan if it's really the alphabet or just only my thought of a degree level, like that would be on my automatic thought, it would look more symbolic than like my own language of the alphabet letters itself as compared to my thought of like Japanese. Did they really consider that looking like a letter? Well, it looks more symbolic to me. But anyway, it's like the structure of a quantum formula of structure of computation in a way of like even the commercials different. Star furniture different by design, and to me that's the E. And ultimately, that's getting to even front page news of the Houston Chronicle, and what that is, even to like the Houston Post and Univision. And I want to say it real quick because I'd mentioned it, because going to the drum shop way back in the 80s, getting like Black Dot Remo drums as compared during the 80s, and like still there like in the early 90s. But in any case, like somewhere around 1999, I'm not real sure, maybe give or take 1 or 2 years, the drum shop was like no longer there. Right at Chimney Rock, which seemed to be automatically now a chimney in the rectangle deal about the hood ornament, Lincoln Continental, and what Abraham Lincoln is the night vision, the Empire Square, and what seems to be now the refrigerator, and what Mr. T, that Mr. T, the guy, and involving the A Team, okay, and what is that it's like 40 in blue, okay, the code blue deal, or like the Israeli flag in my mind. Or, something about really very much a perfect 10-10 vision in a way of like infinite lines getting to it. And I'm still trying to, like, is it my last name? It seemed to be like the map deal of the Statue of Liberty in my mind. Is she born with it? I didn't know that there was like any issue of like what a memorial is to surface or making a grade beyond like internet protocol, local area networks, or, the LA or Los Angeles deal of like N. But L12 and A1 is like 13, and then M and N is like the two center point letters of Pentagon Reserve Reverse, or like intelligence or opposite. And when it's switched in reverse, M is N is M, 13 is 14, 14 is 13, and the alphanumeric is 55 that way, or what font size is, in the way of like a alphanumerics and linguistics, or once again, it's almost like the thermocouple semiconductor and Y2K technology of like conductors, and it's very much like a drummer of panoramic academia as well as conductor. Sometimes you'll see a conductor using like one conductor as compared to a semiconductor. Sometimes it's like the exact opposite and integrated and interchangeable, a practical application of compatibility. It's like the real thing about it. Like a conductor and orchestration, sometimes one, sometimes two, just like a drummer that has the V-twin. And the V-twin itself is almost like Y2K of a drummer, of a V-twin figure 8 drumstick twirl. And what it is to 180 degree, I mean, it's like an automatic for most drummers, that's really, got a double bass and, 180 degrees of like drums and percussion like all around them, at 180, which seems to be the big deal about, 9 degree. In the infinite lines of infinity, that way of like 180 degrees, a panoramic academia. And think about vision and the tolerance of the, like peripheral seems to be the thing of in my thought, even, you've seen it before, people doing this, like eye contact, okay? And the thing with this is like the World Trade Center has those two beams. Highway 288 seemed to be a thing like in my mind of RPM being like 800 as a minimum mandatory requirement of what idly means to transportation, and four wheels like on every highway is like the normal standard of like 800 RPM. Well, on Highway 288, okay, RPM, there's a manufacturer RPM. Their involvement just being there, okay, it's just my thought of being here in the immediate area and what that is to the American Idol, or 800, or even a 1-800 number, maybe my thought of, I mean, the American Idol. I mean, what it is to surface to air. I mean, for real. But in any case, yeah. So it seemed to be a deal of like a memorial as compared to monument, or what San Jacinto Monument is to SAN Software and International Financial Management. It seemed to be the deal between the acronym of Securities and Annuities Network as compared to Storage Area Network. Uh, and what human capital is beyond business and corporate law. That way, in any case, so like I was thinking about that. Let me get back on about the Whopper and the Whoopa and the blue and purple bird of Israel, and the alphanumerics of 64 being Israel and American, and HTTP colon, and in my mind, like a 1980s song, like Round and Round, and there's like the deal about architecture and color code, going through the circuit, okay, and the specifications of design. And it seemed to be some very much of like an alignment. And, like the first two songs, I mean, I'm a drummer, okay. And I automatically think, I mean, I'm so, really taught myself based upon, the preference that I chose for myself. Which was like really hard rock, and it seemed to be the deal about the summit and the summit meetings. Ultimately, yeah, even the thought of pronunciation, ultimately Geneva, Switzerland. And one person gets into alphanumerics and linguistics, it will ultimately seem to be getting to the point of the equator and the commercial. Geo was hoping for a Longines, and or the yes please your response. Yeah, I'll buy a vowel. What that is to none of the above, or what that is to Christianity or absolute Christianity and the Star of David or the 6-point star in code blue of absolute values. It seemed to be the 90 degree of like what it means in absolute values is vertical going through algebra. Through calculus, and what the algorithm is all the way through it, or it's not, and into quantum of absolute, the vertical bars as compared to, what would represent horizontal or wide. Seemed to be the deal about the rectangle and like Abraham Lincoln and night vision and the Lincoln Continental, and something that might refer to maybe the rectangle in a way of the French door. It seemed to be the deal right now. Mr. T, some humor, and really it's really not funny sometimes. In anatomy that way of like a surface to air, okay. The thing with this is that like Mr. T is like, is it the absentee voting you're looking for? Is it the pi squared volume you're looking for? Yeah, the fashion statement beyond the fashion statement, right? Well, in any case, yeah. So like it seemed to be the deal about degree level of the equator, and Geo was hoping for a Longines, right? Like the equator at a 90 degree would be the absolute value of what might be even considered in legal terminology of like attorneys, or probably more so with the American Bar Association. And, my thought of an association is automatically not necessarily anything other than in need of, the word's really not education as far as I'm concerned, because it seemed to be the deal about international law. Me even believing, that even a legal assistant or paralegal would even be referred to in need of like a research. To me, research just isn't the word at an international level. I mean, it's the source, okay? Not that every form of international law would even present the issue of integration based upon, geographics, or what a search engine is to GMAC and HOA, Homeowners Association, or GMAC, a promissory note of General Motors Acceptance Corporation, the IEEE of International Electrical Electronic Engineering. And the big other thing about that, and the alphanumerics of 39 and Wyatt Irv and exclusionary rule provision, it seemed to be ultimately the history of a mailbox seemed to be a rural route thing of banking, methods of banking involving, the deal about the rural route and what that is to the exclusionary rule and methods of banking as compared to account number, as compared to a routing number, or even networking of what hubbing is in space exploration, even networking that way, or what the hub in principle is and is not to a node of software. And one is like every bit of traffic is going to go through a node to either another node or another factor about software and like Orion performance monitoring is like the deal about the node and its actual placement and location and what IP addresses to the IP and the PI Internet Protocol, or the PI, which is the actual spelling of the same letters of the pi r squared, the PI, as compared to what would be the PI would be like a 25 or area, or the letter Y, 25, or the pronunciation of Y, WHY being 56, or paper-made ultimately getting to the heart and what an international a telepathic heart is to international, or certain factors, going beyond the toilet, or the inaugural Well of Bostonville, or Orson Welles in the Title Man, or the Alphanumerics, what that means, and even Wells Fargo thing about the what banking really means of a network above, business and corporate law, of national anthems, and my thing about, information of, religiously and academically, in my mind of, the tribe of Judah, based upon everything I've ever known. But I'm seeing some stuff of like the tribe of Levi, and my thought, all I've ever really known, truthfully, is about the tribe of Judah being of musicians. But I've seen information now that seems to be representative of international financial management. My thought of Australia and the placement and position on the map, according to the information of like what you're seeing me like on right now. Not that I've been anything other than like what's available like right now. There's been like a lot going on, causing an ongoing issue, like having to get different phones, and it's really getting frustrating, thinking that has placed a thought of like limitation and an overbilling to the point of me getting that attitude and getting another phone and not ever getting anything accomplished by talking to 611, okay, or like local area like mobile phone retail. And if the word is retail, only reflecting maybe a thought of like a telekinetic. And it seems to be the deal about RCA and the dog, okay, or In God, or the CEO dog, okay. It's like RCA, Radio Corporation of America. Sometimes it's the phone O graph, okay, and it seems to be like the phone as compared to, I think, I have to think about it. I think telephone is 100, okay, or like a centennial. I have to think about it real quick. 20, 30, 42, 52, 58, 58 and 34 is like a 88 and, wait a minute. Anyway, yeah, I think it's 100 anyway. Anyway, I'll have to think about it again, but I'm going to do it right now. But anyway, it seems to be the deal about the principle of like the centennial being a bicentennial and the pi r square thing about it. But anyway, yeah. So like I was thinking about the NASA being, NASA Road 1, NASA being 35, and the capital, and what human capital is, the human civil rights of Geneva, Switzerland, that way, and the summit, and the human being beyond the pile thing, okay. Yeah, for real. But anyway, yeah, so like the whoopah bird being blue and purple is South America 128. Nostradamus, according to Orson Welles' prediction accuracy of 400 years. And NASA being like memory minus de facto, or, space exploration. What the supplemental security, the acronym SSI, is to the ISS in the International Space Station, okay? What NASA and Austin Powers, and there's something in my mind, really, that seemed to be ultimately the connectivity of information now that I'm seeing is involving the tribe of Levi, or what levitation means, even to the practical application of like the Lord Jesus Christ resurrected, going to Mount Olives, in my mind, for Purple Mountain's majesty of a plateau of the book of Thessalonians of ascending and re-entering heaven, being the word of the Alpha Nerves 192 in the Transfiguration, okay? The thing is that all that is getting to like the plateau of like Mount Olives, and like for Purple Mountain's majesty above the fruited plains. It seemed to be like the whole entire principle of the book cover, like Orion performance monitoring in the rainbow, and the color codes of like international electrical electronic engineering of color code of even a rainbow, even the book cover. And it seemed to be, the cover charts, it seemed to be like so much of what I heard during the 80s in and out of clubs, and for like, a short brief time, maybe around a year or so, give or take 2 or 3 months. But anyway, it's like, at times like a Houston Musician Union thing that really never happened, but I was like in and out of there, talking predominantly with more so with the treasurer and other people on the phone, and actually being there, and it's kind of like, hey, where's it at? Anyway, like it's like the catty corner, like right there on Centerville, right? What was then in my mind, wasn't even there yet. And then it was the Minute Maid field, okay, of the Astros, okay, and all that connectivity of like the barrel of fun, and what the tribe of Levi seemed to be of levitate, of centrifugal force, like at asteroids, like the barrel of fun, of centrifugal force, it would spin, and a centrifugal force would be not necessarily the idea of like a G-force and like aeronautics, or what a pilot would feel, or even astronauts train for. Of centrifugal force, as compared to pilots of G-force. But the centrifugal force, normally even associated with like anatomy and medical terminology, ultimately gets to a perpendicular spiral of attenuation of like a digital signal processing. I mean, I was like with it at a specific location and didn't realize that availability was going to be, so very much the memory minus de facto. I mean, it's like when I saw it, it's kind of like, at the time, it's kind of like, it's like phenomenally, like, way cool. Got to get one. And I thought, when it comes, that's exactly what I'm going to do. But it's like the one and only, and at the time I wasn't even thinking like what I'm talking about it like right now, but it's like a psychoacoustics that go beyond the parameters of what would be normally controlled, normally of either customizing, but the same practical application of like the limiter, expander, and compressor of the mandatory requirement of like performance of audience and ranging anywhere from like 2 to 3, 5,000, like big time some meetings are like normally around right at 20,000 is normally the requirement of like arenas. And my thought of like even my thought is like, hey, I'd like to see the Airmark Arena of maximum capacity of seating of indoor, the Airmark Arena of 26,000 on Highway 288, and like a whole lot of stuff. Okay. Hey, why not even Wade Bank International? Yeah. Hi, I'm that guy. Yeah. Anyway, like I'm Wade. Okay. I live in Pearland. I'm a drummer. Okay. I sing too. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I write songs when I'm not experiencing technical difficulties. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So like yeah. Anyway, so like real quick about the Nasser 1 and FM 528 being one and the same. And the Israeli bird being 128, and Nostradamus having a prediction of accuracy, according to the narration of Orson Welles, of 400 years, a difference of 128. And what Orson Welles' predictions of the Persian Gulf is to oil, as compared to the blue turbans in Code Bleu, of the Star of David, of an Israeli flag, and the principle of pastel being 73, Houston and Harrison, the history of a television screen, are in my mind, even middleware of something of Oracle Corporation, Oracle being 54, and why in my mind it's automatically a 64 deal of importing and exporting. Definitely like the difference between the acronyms SAN software being a degree level, whether it's the and or including or neither nor thing about SAN software of like storage area networks or securities and annuities that way, what that is to the equator. Or, the deal of making a grade beyond, local area networks, of the thing about airborne, or, being beyond the memorial issue, and it seems to be the surface to air issue of, like, really a method of banking, seemed to be, like, even the endorsement, the signature, going beyond what might only be the deal about Washington, D.C., or domestically clause or direct circuitry, or the degree, non-degree thing about non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization, seemingly to be the deal of international law of having fair use of access easement. I mean, like the neighborhood, okay? The yeas and nays are like, yes, it's really the deal about it, and the nay. And, how true that is with parental guidance, or what a neighborhood is to, whether offspring is really the word, the boing, and it seemed to be like something in my mind of like pearl beer. And really, I don't like referring to it like that. But, as compared to something that might suggest, the thing about it. And what that is in the book, The Secrets of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country, and normally identified as a European-owned, German-owned, in the book, Secrets of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country. De Beers diamond is how it's termed, at least when I was reading it, okay? The thing about Germany, it's like 83, like winner, or what that is to the thought of, 1964. The principle of binary numbers using only two numbers in sequencing characterization sets of 4. Like my birth year being 1964, 19 plus 64 being 83. Or winner. What that is, that's why I like really, look at my birth year. It seems to be like something very much of like whether or not if the third and fourth generation is going to represent dimensional clause, whether it's a degree level or whether opportunity only represents is like the principle of like below business and corporate law, or going through a circuit being above it and with it, and in a way that might normally even be an issue of like a circuit at all, and it's still like the principle of a television at the same time, and maybe not even recognized as an easement being used. And what a fixture in real estate is as compared to venue. Identifying the signals of difference between venue or what residential is as compared to commercial. And likewise, all the stuff, whether a commercial venue is not really a commercial building, whether a commercial venue, my thought is really, at this point really, my thought of living like in a neighborhood is really, my thought really wanting, yes, my own really, at first I said like 5-floor, yeah, commercial venue living quarter, like thoroughly all about like music, audio production, and music video, and not limited to, and circuit, and touring, and manufacturing, distribution, and all that stuff about, uh, what is now compact disc, what was then cassettes. My thing about compact disc, even DVD and motion picture, and um, timekeeping that way of I think it's the TPM. Anyway, it's like it's a time code involving video and film, as far as like placement, when editing seems to be like the real deal, or actually what would be referred to as minutes in the courtroom of transcript of verbal, which is normally like a limit of a 13-band graphic equalizer, and what the impedance and ambience is of pastel green and pastel red. And I don't remember seeing like the pastel red being the impedance, and in combination at the same time on the same 13-band graphic equalizer, the ambience of, the pastel green seem to be the big deal, even of like traffic, or what intersecting axis is based upon even networking of hubbing as compared to nodes. Seem to be the deal about intersecting axis, and Audi in a way of like the three intersecting axes, and what that is to globalization, or even why one pronoun cannot be used as a subject of the four types of pronouns. I mean, it's, the deal about is the four circles are there, but only three intersecting axes seems to be the deal about symbolic representation of like liquid equity of international financial management, that would represent maybe even maritime law, or the symbolic, not necessarily cross-face cancellation, although it might represent and maybe present maybe the thought of overlapping, of measuring like cycles per second and oscillation, presenting the intersecting axis of what would be like even representative of the heart monitor, peaking and cresting of heart monitors as compared to like the curve and waveform, what would give the impression of measuring cycles per second oscillation, or even symbolic or even schematic of the globalization of international financial management, and even the toilet. Yeah, Robert Half, my thought about the deal about Robert Half, or Robert in the way of like a heart god or escrow. Now, all the connectivity seems to be the deal, but anyway, the symbolic representation of like the Christian thing, the fish, being like intersecting axes of even like out of it, really so, really not, maybe so, maybe not, or in any case, I mean that represents even the thought of what perpendicular spires are going beyond the parameters of like customizing. What would be maybe controlling what would be the only thought of psychoacoustic beyond a parameter, kind of like an expertise beyond the norm. Normally customizing digital signal processing in waveform, and what waveform is to like a real court reporter that identifies like minutes of transcript and symbolic representations, symbolic representing the impression of like waveform, of being in the courtroom, of not really a typewriter, or the thought of like what font is to English language, but waveform and symbolic representation like of a real court reporter in the courtroom. Likewise, in addition, what the perception might only be maybe with or not with, or the perception, or maybe not distinguish what perception might maybe suggest as a persuasive way of thinking. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, my thought about in many cases seems to be like the deal about. Right now, I want to get back on the FM 528 and the Nostradamus and the Whoopa, as compared to the oldest computer mainframe, the Whopper, as compared to the pronunciation of the bird Whoopa, the blue and purple bird being alphanumeric 128. But all that is the Austin Powers. Well, anyway, there's like a freeze frame of like what I'm looking at as and have been, and it seemed to be like the deal about a current resident and prepaid postage. Even Calamity Jane, representative, horsepower, or the Pony Express, and what prepaid postage is to even the history of like Calamity Jane, or the clam ultimately getting to the pearl. And it seemed to be the deal between panning for gold of Sox and Goldman, or the walk as compared to the pan in Wyatt Earp and John Wayne, and what Hopsing is to the pearl and the walk, or amphibious in way of pronunciation, only amphibious of like airborne, above like internet protocol of like local area networks, of surface to air, getting airborne, even of a baptism, yeah, even principle of Christianity, like the baptism representing the death, resurrection, and ascending, and ultimately the whole entire point of like re-entering heaven of the transfiguration, alphanumeric 192, which is also identified what probably more than likely was available information of the alphanumerics of 192. That is on the home theater as amplification. The American Amplified deal of a summit meeting, concerts, and performance. The alphanumerics 192. Okay, and the thing with this is that that biblical reference in Thessalonians being a platform. Not necessarily, let me rephrase that, a plateau as compared to what might only represent maybe the thought of a tree when like a high-rise is completed, there's a tree. Sometimes it's associated as a holiday, a celebration, not necessarily always a Christianity or a Christmas thing. It's just like a thing that construction companies do when a high-rise is like completed, they put a tree on top. And I mean, if it's ultimately getting to a surface-to-air issue of high-rise beyond like internet protocol, or what night vision is to Abraham Lincoln in the hood ornament, the rectangle. What now seems to be now like the errands. Yeah, I've been to AA, I've been to a summit meeting. Now, immediately, seems to be the whole entire thing of like everything being so controlled. And it seemed to be, how could I not know? Like, but anyway, it's like, like errands like presents the availability of leasing. And now it seems to be like the Mr. T and the humor of surface to air. And it's really not humor, but the anatomy thing about surface to air, okay? Or like the mistletoe, or the thing about the plateau, or what the deal is with the hood ornament being used for like the accuracy of citing. What annotation is to annotated 94 or paper made, really being the alphanumerics of 56 and 39, yet binary numbers being 1 and 0 only, or like automatically like 1 and 0 being 10, or 39 like made, but yet the pronunciation with the word 10 being 39 alphanumerically, yet the number only 10. And 56 is 10 seemed to be the big deal, like a Roe v. Wade thing. When I started studying alphanumerics and using practical application using combination of two number, just only because when the alphabet is reversed, like M is N becoming N is M. Even the thing about the Federal Reserve Banks, the 12 Federal Reserve Banks, I've seen it both ways, that it actually began in the year, the first thing was like a Jehovah's Witness thing, that the beginning of the last days is like the 1914 thing. It's like a Jehovah's Witness thing of the Watchtower. And it's phenomenally like a little bit of humor, Gio was hoping for a laundry, but hey, how about that Jehovah's Witness Watchtower, right? Real surface to air, right? Yeah, anyway, yeah, so in any case, yeah, so the thing about it, a little bit of humor about that, and really, optional based upon, not funny situation, but yeah. The thing with this is it ultimately gets to the high-rise thing about it. Jehovah's Witnesses thing about the Watchtower, as far as like Christianity goes, and Jehovah's Witness, the Witness Hall, okay? And the thing about the last days being like a landmarking year of 1914, which is also the beginning of the, according to the information, how true it is. I mean, like, I'm just that guy born in 1964, really. In any case, that's like like a deal like of grandfathers, and whether grandparent or what that is to even, the Grover Cleveland 1,000 or the 10 Commandments thou shalt thing, as compared to Grover Cleveland and the U.S. $1,000 or Zion 1,000 years of peace and the operator and all that stuff I'd mentioned before on my YouTube.com channel. Yay, Wade ASB, Priddy. Yes, it is on the map. Pretty Texas, yes, Priddy. Well, anyway, like I'm that guy trying to like not have a dress code issue. Yeah, but yeah. But by the way, yeah, I could use like a hair transplant, yeah, and my entire mouth done with like dental implants, single individual, yeah, yes, and a little bit of cosmetic surgery, yeah, amazingly true, yeah. Well, like through it all, okay, yeah, it seemed to be like what you're hearing right now, yeah. So anyway, yeah, so like yeah, all right, yeah, for real. But anyway, in any case, yeah, so like I thought about the Statue of Liberty. I mean, you got to be kidding me. The Consumer Report price index, huh? Anyway. Yeah, so like yeah, like that's going on, okay. But anyway, yeah. So like in any case, yeah. So let me get back onto the whooper, the blue and purple bird, the Israeli flag, the bird of Israel, and the whopper and the whooper between governmental. I don't know if structure would be more the thing, not necessarily misappropriation of allocation, but I mean if that seems to be an excess easement of international law of having fair use. Misappropriation of allocation. I mean, is it the art length letter deal beyond, the tidy bill man in a more formative presentation, in a more adequate direction, a little bit of humor, computer literacy, and, a two-dimensional factor of like a flat plane surface, even the toilet paper, a practical application of isometrics becoming three-dimensional, which seemed to be the real deal about isometrics and even blueprints being above at a degree level of like business corporate law beyond the thought of even calculus that way. Pretty much so. But anyway, like the blue and bird purple, blue and purple bird, the whoopa. Okay, and going through, my thought of really a June 1992, June 14th, 1992, Saturday, a baptism, yeah, in Friendswood, Texas, the Mormon church, yeah. I mean, in any case, it seemed to be like a 6 month period. Seemingly now a Six Flag thing, and something about the psychic warrior. I mean, it's like it's just like happening, and like I'm just like, it just happens. It just happens. Like I'm just, okay, my name is Wade Sterling Prade, the alphabet of 213, or like telepathic brainwaves. It's just like I've been given, and it's like the accusation, like, hey, I'm supposed to know like everything known to mankind in the universe. And really, I've been feeling that way for quite some time. Get really not funny. Don't have to be upset, but yeah, really not cool sometimes about the thought of that. Yeah. Any case, yeah, so like the thing about the Los Angeles area code, okay, 213. And my thought of like even GeoPrism, the way it's spelled of Chevrolet, like the operator or the alphanumeric's 108 or bicentennial, or zero being 64 itself, and HTTP of programming, even language of like binary numbers, okay, HTTP colon double forward slash, okay. In any case, yeah. So like there it goes, yeah. So anyway, um, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna flip a switch real quick and get the electricity kind of like kicked out real quick. I'm looking for my remote, yeah. But anyway, I think what I'm gonna do right now is that while I was thinking about the whoopa bird, the blue and purple bird in NASA, and FM 528, a difference of 128, the actual numerical value, alphanumeric value of the whoopa, and pronunciation between Whopper, the oldest governmental computer mainframe. Nihio Silver, the toilet is the connectivity of computer programming and language. The oldest governmental computer mainframe being the Whopper. Like religion really is the oldest thing about something about and how true it is if it's only designated for the language, English language of Christianity. Not real sure to the extent, but the Israeli bird being, it is the blue and purple bird. Alphamex 128, what it is to NASA, or memory minus de facto being 35, or human capital, or Austin Powers, or Austin being 84, and embassy, or Austin Powers Blue Bonnet Imperial Eagle. And what, gee, I can't believe it's butter is to the colon, or the Austin Powers Blue Bonnets Imperial Eagle. The thing about the colon, or what that is to even Neptune, a little bit of humor of like the solar system, name that, but gee, naming that soon in one whole note on Neptune, but hey, there's Uranus and Venus, right? The thing with this, there's a little bit of humor, and I'm not going to stay on that because really, my intent with the humor about alignment in a parallel universe, and something really about the rainbow as compared to Austin Powers, a Blue Bonnet Imperial Eagle. What that is to the 13 stars above an eagle on the backside of the U.S. $1. And what that, in my mind, automatically the deal about Geneva, Switzerland, human civil rights, and human capital, and going through the circuit being above business corporate law as to the Thousand Years Peace, or Grover Cleveland, the U.S. $1,000 bill. In any case, yeah, so like the blue and purple bird is 128 alphanumerically. And my thought of Nostradamus, once again, being alphanumerics of 152. And once again, I'm going to have to actually make sure. So, I'm going to think about I'm almost for certain it's 152, telepathic Carter, international. And ultimately, the circuit seemed to be, the deal about international being above business corporate law that way, or international banking systems, or what comptrolling is to, what international law of having fair use of access easements. And normally that is an automatic perception, like the DVD of royalties. International law of having fair use of access easements is considerable amount of like easements and involving intellectual property, like a compact disc or a DVD, associated beyond sales and promotions and touring and concerts and manufacturing and distribution of sales, and what a contributing factor is to promotionals, and the thing about that of royalties, and that's the deal about international law. Similarly, even if having fair use of like even neighborhoods, or what human capital is, below business corporate law, normally just a local area network would present the issue of like a LAN, land, surface to air, kind of like, the thing that seems to be the deal, making a grade beyond internet protocol of like a local area network, or, you know, um, the MN, the 12, the L12, and the A1, or LA being like Los Angeles, or the alphanumeric is 109, and the thing about the Robert E. Rubin, or Robert E. Rubin quarter, how the Roosevelt New Deal Act, New Deal being 64, and New Deal Act being what, 39. Excuse me, New Deal being 64, and New Deal Act being 88. What Oldsmobile Delta 88? What the delta is in schematics to the triangle. The biggest mouth of the river in North America is like the Mississippi, as compared to what you might think of as like the Nile of Africa and the Amazon of South America. You know what the Mississippi is in North America, or Y2K technology representative of even a thermocoupled semiconductor. What Y2K technology is to, the placement of Y, or standing, or that thing about, like, you know the Y2K, the thought of like a high end yields and returns. You got to be kidding me. It's like a gravity deal, and space exploration in a way of like a performance. Yeah, all right. Yeah, yeah, and Pinocchio's on deck. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to skip that for right now. But anyway, yeah. The thing about it is, it seemed to be real quick, because it's getting kind of warm real quick, and okay, it's already going beyond an hour and 15 minutes right now, getting on to the 39 seconds. Anyway, so like the Nostradamus thing about the being actually 400 years into the new millennium being 1,000, seemingly the 1,000 years of peace of Zion, and the Grover Cleveland, US 1,000, and the south of the Ten Commandments. And yeah, it's getting warm already, real quick. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go flip that switch on that surge protector. But anyway, yeah. So like NASA's like NASA Road 1 and Clear Lake, which has now been annexed as Houston. In any case, so like NASA Road 1 being 528, and prediction of Nostradamus seemed to be the thing of the difference of Nostradamus' prediction of accuracy being the accuracy of a hood ornament, yeah, of night vision, of oil, yeah, can you believe it, yeah. Even the Persian Gulf in that way, or like the Nimitz class. Nimitz rearranged in pronunciation as minutes, and normally in courtroom, I mean, this is like an automatic assumption that it's automatically an attorney when you hear the word minutes asking a court reporter for the minutes. It's normally a transcript. Likewise, in a real military court proceeding, I mean, it's in wave form. I mean, it's like a known fact that in a real courtroom, I mean, it's like not necessarily the typewriter issue, but a symbolic representation of waveform. Likewise, in audio production, the thing about the attenuation that way. But anyway, yeah, so like all that connectivity between, memory minus de facto being 35, or what the Austin Powers deal, or what litigation, the perception of litigation and de facto, it's normally like in the United States Supreme Court. And, I had read so many cases involving, I was really looking at the word de facto. And normally, I mean, normally corporate law is normally really not even in any venue of jurisdiction other than corporate law itself. Not really not normally at a corporate level, of a degree level. It's normally not even in anything that gives the impression of a county courthouse, or even the United States Supreme Court, for real. But it seems to be the thing about what that is to a degree level of opportunity. Even international law having fair use of access easement. I mean, even proper English grammatical composition of political science, as compared to, what implementation might only mean as a degreed form of term, having a right to assemble in a way, as compared to like a nativity point of origin, or bewildered behavior in need of management, that might even suggest a reserve, being 92, or reverse, Pentagon Reserve reverse. Alphanumerics in 92, a drummer, a Pentagon, ultimately getting to quite a bit. In any case, yeah, so like the difference of the accuracy in my mind is automatically, citing codes of annotation, being, that it's studied law really beyond the classroom, just a short brief time. And my academics is about paralegal studies, okay? Advanced paralegal studies, really beyond the classroom, years up and beyond, even during normally an automatic 2 hours after a half a day class, being, normally pretty close to 4 to 5 hours, depending on the day of the week. But yeah. So anyway, in any case, yeah, it's kind of really getting warm real quick already. I'm gonna have to go get that thing going real quick on the power surge thing. Yeah. So the whoopa and the whopper, what a governmental structure is to a bird or a religious thing beyond at an academic level. Similarly, the thing about Zion, 1,000 years, and Grover Cleveland, 1,000, thing about even the equator in that way of a separation between church and state. And what that is to NASA and Austin Powers, that way of the bird. And Yes, Nostradamus. Um, even representative of being refueled in midair. Even principle of the rapture and the ascension and the transfiguration, being in the sky. Even the balloons on the book cover, Orion performance monitoring. The barometric altimeter of condensing residuals. And really, like the biggest shipment, and like I've mentioned it many times, like one of the biggest that was like world, national, and local news for like God, it seemed to be like about a 6 month period. Yeah, amazingly true. Of Geoprism and Hyundai Excel. And the way Geoprism is spelled with a Z is like 109, okay? Or the M is in factor, okay, of Geoprism is Geoprism. M is in, amazingly true. And instead of using S, using a Z, geoprism is geoprism. The MSN thing about the African-American linguistics, at the same time, the African-Americans of like 109 is 110 governors president, okay? The African-Americans of 247, which is automatically in my mind, a Highway 59 thing about even African-Americans of 140 Pearland, Texas, African-American attenuation, God, um, Attenuation USA, African-Americans USA, being African-Americans of like Houston, Texas, electronic power, and just between Houston and Harris County, and the Egypt thing, the US dollar, the triangle, the Delta Force, and schematics and symbolic representation. I mean, like everything I'm talking about is like really all that connectivity. And really, right now, as compared to the Whoop and the Whopper, similarly be the issue of like Wyatt Earp and John Wayne and Hop saying the difference of what J. Edgar Hoover and Amphibious is, the thought and principle of like a religious thing of like being airborne. Even though the Air Force, in a way, of what airborne is to a principle of amphibious, being above a local area network, or the thought of a memorial, or on surface, like a signature or endorsement, method of banking, um, above business and corporate law that way, of like J. Edgar Hoover. The thing about the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover is the thing about amphibious, ultimately getting to, the hovercraft and the Hoover, and, the thing of, even the weird science, a little bit of humor, but it is the question of the movie Weird Science. Will a penny fall faster than a feather in a vacuum tube? I mean, it's only two deal. A penny and a feather. The penny being Lincoln, okay. The deal about night vision, the hood ornament, Lincoln Continental, and the rectangle. My thing right now seems to be the Mr. T thing, the humor about surface to air thing about that. Is it the absentee voting you're looking for? Then the anatomy thing of surface to air, really not cool. Sometimes funny, sometimes really not. The thing is that really, the thought of being in control, or not in control. How that happens, or what the deal is in uh, consumption or consumer price index, and what that is to, like, the thing about air, even air quality, amazingly true. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, so, or, I mean, if the demographic study is the deal, I don't need to talk about all that, but the thing it is about, anyway, the deal about Mr. T, or what that is to a golf course, or a 9-hole golf course as compared to an 18-hole golf course, or, the dictionary being, like a dictionary, or, a headquarter, yeah, or a bicentennial headquarter, yeah, the dictionary, yeah. In any case, yeah, so like there's like a lot of things. But anyway, it's kind of like the Mr. T thing now in errands. Or, a little bit of humor. Yeah, I've been to a summit meeting. I've been to AA, the American Amplified. Well, anyway, like at errands, okay, I just got like a Samsung refrigerator, and it's got the upper French doors, okay. Like the rectangle is amazingly true. It's even like a polished, brushed, kind of like charcoal, kind of black, kind of a little bit lighter, kind of like almost like night vision. It's amazingly true. And it seems to be almost like an Elton John song. Don't let the sun go down on me. It's kind of like frozen here on the ladders of the life. It seemed to be like at the same time an Elton John song. Yet at the same time, it's like the Six Flags thing of like what Astral World is to the barrel of fun, and what centrifugal force is to levitation. When the floor drops down, the centrifugal force keeps, the centrifugal force keeps, everyone like stationary. What a stationary engineer is that way of even an oblong. Gee, I was hoping for a long gene, an oblong toilet, or know what a halo venue is. Um, yeah, for real. So, anyway, it's kind of like it gets to like information that's being provided now is like the tribe of Levi having something to do with musicians in a way of, automatically my thought of levitation, or the Levi's 501 Levi 501 blue button up jeans, the button up, huh? Button being 92 and up being 37. What is that, 92 and 37? I'll think about it later. I think it's 129, like publishers, or what publishers is the version. And, that's the word on the King James Version Bible. Uh, Not necessarily really in the law library, yet that's a fact. of many different types of books. Not that it needs to be identified as anything other than a categorization. And category automatically is the thought of really not version, but the same practical application that way. But anyway, yeah, that seemed to be the deal of Vernon State of Texas statutes annotated. I'd been there years, kind of like looking for something about the warehouse district and run across certain factors of the ERISA statute and similarities of like what the warehousing is to say in software or storage area networks was really what I was looking at the time. Something about the ERISA statute or uh, the early bird thing that Ed McMahon talks about. Sometimes the ERISA is normally the employee retirement um, income supplement. I've seen it as securities annuities, but the ERISA is normally identified normally as employee retirement. But Ed McMahon, I mean, enter the early bird. Can you believe it? American Family Posters Clearinghouse Sweepstakes, huh? And the IRA and the ERISA with the remainder of SE pronunciation of, the border, representative border of like even an equator issue of, as compared to the L Presidente or the Lee, the FBI 17 Lee or L, it would seem to be the thing, a principle of the equator of degree level as compared to what might only represent maybe as a border, a boundary limitation of language of, African Americans like Mexico and Texas, or, even the thing about the books, Secrets of Temple Health Federal Reserve, the country and the history of the U.S. dollar below the equator of South America being the word mammon, as compared to like Texas being Jehovah. Jehovah Witness Hall, or Geo's home for a long time, what that is to the equator to a 90 degree. Similarly, the thing about June 14th, 1992, baptism of Six Flags, becoming more and more happy to not be at this time of, obviously, the Mormon Church in Friendswood. And I thought about, Chimney Rock being a rectangle, or chimney being a rectangle, what that is to Abraham Lincoln, the hood ornament. Once again, yeah, of like the rectangle of the Lincoln Continental, and what that is to the question in the movie, Weird Science. Will a penny fall faster than a feather in a vacuum tube? The figure 8, okay? The pi r squared gets to, yes, a figure 8. Using the word squared as symmetrical and asymmetrical at a diagonal of a triangle still presents the 180 degree. The pronunciation of squared. It's the same practical application of the computation of the formula. Pi r squared is normally just automatically identifying the radius, adding itself twice, okay? Being identified and knowing that it's just adding something twice. Yet at the same time, squared is representing normally 2 anyway. Yet the square, as a square, a shape, doesn't have to be really the rectangle. But does a rectangle present the same 180 degree like a triangle of symmetrical, asymmetrical, still symmetrical, asymmetrical, yet a triangle, which seems to be the real deal, that still is not a question 180 degree, but is the rectangle of symmetrical, asymmetrical of the pronunciation of square in the formula pi r squared? Is it still going to present the issue of 180 degrees? Is really the deal about it. And I'm really not sure, but yeah, I'm thinking that might be the issue. But anyway, yeah, so like the triangle and being, like the triangle of delta, of the delta force being like a deal of a schematic representing, audible form of communication, being like the biggest mouth of the river, okay? And what the river is to a driver and transportation that way. Or forefathers of the nation, or FBI minus CIA being, the 4 thing. The forefathers, the D. The forefathers of the nation, what that is, and Jewish is like another Mount Rushmore that I need to know about of night vision. The thing of it is, it seems to be really getting to like errands. And there's like a Samsung that's like 94, okay? And it was like automatically the refrigerator, and finally I got a new one. That's the one I chose, and it just happened to be like what I wanted before I really even thought about it. And after just looking at it, it seemed to be quite a bit. The 56 is 10 or 94 annotated adoption abortion, which seems to be the big deal of like Brazoria country. Being African American of like a spirit of adoption, a biblical term, even symbolic representation on the backside of the U.S. $1 bill, or a birth of mental telepathy, being airborne of like a telepathic birth, being airborne that way, or the Star is Born thing. I mean, really, it seemed to be the difference between a spiritual experience, or what the deal is to like mental telepathy minus God, or telepathic brainwaves, or the thought of like Chevrolet Silverado Z71. Is it like 69 in Texas or 88 in California? There's like a a pretty California and a pretty Texas. Okay, but the thing about it is that really, excuse me, let me refer to that in a different way of alphanumeric. So Pearland, California, as the difference. It seemed to be the big deal about the difference between the New Deal Act and Roosevelt. Theodore to like Franklin is six terms in office is presidential. Between is 6 terms of office, of presidential terms in office is the deal about the Theodore to the Franklin Roosevelt, and the deal about the Roosevelt being 131, like a pi r squared being added to itself, being 262, like a dollar quarter. Yeah, or a miracle quarter, but like a dollar quarter. 262, like Roosevelt, is like 131. But being the New Deal Act is the deal about the FDIC and alphanumerics of 22, RCA, huh, and a car, or FBI psychology minus 22, or even the alphanumerics of what would be symbolic and analytical of Japanese. Being the only information that I know of is that there's 22 Japanese alphabet letters. It all looks symbolic to me, and how true it is it even being really alphabetical like we use English. I mean, to me, the symbolic structure, it looks symbolic to me, and I'm sure that's the whole entire point of like, normal geniuses involving psychology, is that the Japanese, since I don't really read or write it, other than it looks symbolic to me, and really that's all I need to know right now, and really not at all. But the thought of it being used in quantum as a structure, and the different by design, what furniture and star furniture is to the different by design, the E, and the computation of formula, and now it's the structure issue of like quantum, giving the impression of like a Japanese letter of the 22, and it being 22 FDIC, what that is to like the Roosevelt New Deal Act being involved in the FDIC, and obviously the alphanumerics of 22. What the structure is with the different design E is beyond calculus in the Pentagon, and what a bicentennial drummer is. So the operator or Zion being 0, the same thing about the operator in alphanumerics of 64 and ACTP. But anyway, it's like it's already going like 1 hour and 31 minutes and 35 seconds. Hey, all right, yeah. So you know what? It's getting kind of warm. I'm gonna kick the AC back on and get it turned on. Get it like really cool in here. Okay. So anyway, there it is. I'm gonna take a break. I'll talk to you later.